before I discovered Bitcoin, I had an engineering background, a tech investor background. I was a bit of a academic in the history of science. And I had a background in the real world running a software company that was multinational. And I had a background as a public company CEO. And along the way, I picked up lots of bruises as a tech entrepreneur. I picked up lots of wisdom, learning what it's like to do business everywhere in the world. And along comes 2020 and the pandemic crisis, and there's COVID, and there was lockdowns, and then the interest rates went to zero, and there was financial hysteria, and the world was turned upside down and split in half. You know, all of our office cultures, they all got thrown out the window, and we all went to remote work, and we did it like overnight. All of our prejudices and biases, well, we think we should do it this way, they got thrown out the window, and maybe we have to do it a different way. All of our thoughts about money and banking, it's like, okay, here's your money in the bank. It earns 0% interest. Well, what am I going to do? And by the way, we're inflating the currency, and eventually everything's going to cost twice as much. Houses are going to go up in price, and yet your money's going to earn zero. That causes people to open their mind to new ideas. So in my case, I approached this existential risk in 2020, running a publicly traded company, and we happened to have two things. We had about $500 million in cash, earning 0% interest, and we had a $500 million software business generating about $75 million in cash flow. And our stock was a bit more than $1 billion in value. So the marketplace put 1x multiple on our business and 1x multiple on the cash. And I looked at it. My first concern was, will the company survive the crisis? You know, in March, April, May of 2020, we were all worried about, you know, our lives, our family, our businesses, our business model. And once I realized that wasn't going away, my second thought was, how is it possible that every Main Street business is having the worst year of their life? Every restaurant, every bar, every gym, every yoga salon, everyone, you know, that shows up to work, not only are they not working, they're not allowed to work. And if you open up your gym, you know, people are getting arrested for opening up a gym to get healthy. So on one side, you have this crisis. Half the people in the world or half the businesses are having the worst year of their life. And then in the summer of 2020, all the Wall Street firms had the best year of their life. All the stocks doubled. All the real estate assets went through the roof. When we dropped the interest rate to zero, real estate property values double, you know, all of a sudden, you know, all the big tech companies are shooting through the sky, and S&P is shooting through the sky. And I just saw this paradox. How is it possible that one part of society thinks everything's great, and another part of society thinks this is the most awful thing? So we were worried a little bit about that, but really we thought, you know, $500 million is going to be worth $500 million in 4 years, except that you're going to need $1 billion to buy the same amount of stuff as you could buy with $500 million today. So we're destroying shareholder value to sit in our position. The market doesn't care about us. And on the other hand, we don't own anything that's benefiting from all this inflation and from these low interest rates. So we started looking around, and you know, in that year, my mind opened, and I embraced a lot of new ideas. I embraced the idea of podcasting. I'd never done any podcasts until 2020. I embraced the idea of Zoom. I would have fired you in February if you wanted to do remote work, but by the end of March, it was mandatory. You know, so yeah, it's like 10 years or 20 years of innovation or evolution, you know, all coming in a week or 2 weeks. Then I thought, well, what am I going to do with this money? I either got to give it back to the shareholders, you know, and decapitalize. And if I decapitalize, I thought that's a fast death, right? Our company was looking at a fast death, a slow death, or do something new. And I wasn't interested in the fast death. The slow death didn't have a lot of appeal, just get chipped away at by big tech companies. And so it's kind of a desperate moment, a moment of truth where you have to make a decision and take a risk. And so we looked around and we said, well, what do we need right now? Well, we need a hard asset that is scarce, that people all want in the world. And we need to get on top of the next big tech trend. You know, like, is it digital relationships? Is it digital books? Is it digital photographs? Well, it's too late to jump on top of Apple, Amazon, and Google and Facebook. You had to hit them and invest in them in 2010, 2012. I said, what's the next big thing? I thought, what about Facebook for money? What if someone actually invented a bank for that 1 billion people, or in this case, 8 billion people needed, that ran on the internet, that actually had an asset which no government could debase, which every wealthy investor wants, which you could move at the speed of light, that you could program into an iPhone? What is this? Digital gold, digital capital, digital property. What if the next wave is the digital transformation of money, of property, of energy, of all these ideas? They weren't transformed in the first internet wave. And I looked around and I thought, well, that feels like crypto gold to me. And so what if I could create something that was better than gold? It had none of the defects of gold, and it offered the promise of sound money to 8 billion people. And then I could combine that with a digital network like Google, like Android, or like iOS, or like the internet. That struck me as being the next big idea. And so MicroStrategy became the first public company to buy Bitcoin. And we bought $250 million of Bitcoin in August of 2020, and no one had ever made such a large commitment to this scary, new, crazy crypto idea.
Were you worried about volatility at the time, that you could make that investment and have it drop by 80, 90% in a year?
Yeah, I was worried about volatility. And the way that we dealt with that was, we had 500 million in capital. I wasn't worried that it would drop and we would panic sell it. I was worried that it would drop and our shareholders would have a big issue with it and we might get sued. Right?
Yeah.
And so the way we dealt with it was, we announced that we were going to do a $250 million stock buyback at a premium. We call it Dutch auction. And we paired it with a $250 million Bitcoin purchase. And we allowed all of our shareholders to get out. Like if you didn't buy into the Bitcoin strategy, you could tender your shares back to the company at a premium. That rotated our shareholder base, and we didn't have neutral or indifferent shareholders. We had all pro-Bitcoin shareholders. And that changed the dynamic of the company. It turned out that that Dutch auction resulted in only about $60 million of shares being tendered. So we had 175 million left at the end of the Dutch auction period 20 days later.
Yeah.
And we bought another 175 million of Bitcoin. And then we had 425. So at this point, no one in the world, I think the largest public company might have had $1 or $2 million of Bitcoin before that. And we come over the top with 425 million. And we declared to the world that we thought this was going to be our primary treasury reserve asset, right? This is the way we're going to run our treasury. And that was a brand new idea. There's 43,000 public companies, and we were the first one to say, let's not put your capital in bonds or cash, or just give it away. Let's invest the capital in this new liquid asset, this crypto asset called Bitcoin. When we did that, the stock doubled, and we raised another $650 million. And then the stock went up again, and we raised $1 billion. And we raised $1 billion about 6 months after this initiative in a convertible debt offering at 0% interest. So we borrowed $1 billion at 0% interest for about 6 years, I think.
Yeah.
And we went to buy Bitcoin with it. So at that point, we had said, not only do we think we're going to invest our free cash in Bitcoin, we're going to go ahead and we're going to borrow money to buy Bitcoin. And while we were doing it, other public companies like Square and then Tesla started buying Bitcoin. And then all these Bitcoin miners came public. And so from 2020 to 2024, that was the crazy years of uncertainty. People weren't sure, will Bitcoin be banned? Will it be copied? Will it be hacked? Is it a long-term thing? The skeptics thought well, maybe, some people, the deniers said it's just tulip bulbs. Other people, skeptics, said, oh yeah, it's really good. It's better than gold, but it's too good to be true. And so the government's going to take it away from you. And at one point, China banned Bitcoin mining, and that created a crisis. And then they banned Bitcoin trading, and that created a crisis. So a lot of uncertainty there. But our belief was Bitcoin is the solution to 8 billion people's problem. It's the solution to 300 million companies' problem. It's the innovation, the biggest innovation in money or property rights in the history of the human race. It's like fire or electricity, right? It's this new monetary protocol which is going to elevate humanity to new levels. So we became obviously very big advocates. We raised $500 million in a senior debt issue to buy more Bitcoin. Then we sold $1 billion of equity to buy Bitcoin. Then we sold another, then we borrowed money against Bitcoin to buy Bitcoin. Then we issued more equity to buy Bitcoin. If you fast forward through the 4 years, as of today, since we started, we've invested $7.5 billion in Bitcoin, which is worth any given day 14 to 15 billion. The market cap of the company went from 1 billion to 30. The enterprise value of the company went from 600 million to more than 30. So, and the stock 10x'd. So during that time period, the company stock outperformed just about every stock on the S&P index. It outperformed NVIDIA and Tesla and Amazon and Apple and Google and Facebook. It outperformed Bitcoin itself. And it's not very often that you 10x a stock, 20x a market cap, 40x the enterprise value in 44 months. Right. So we took a particular position, which is Bitcoin is a good strategy. It's good for the world, and we're not going to be shaken. And while that was happening, obviously Bitcoin, when we bought it at 11,800, it crashed down into the 9,000. So we took like a $40 million hit in the first week or 2 weeks. So it was very stressful losing 40 million of 250 million, right? It's a big thing, but we doubled down, and then Bitcoin rallied up. And it eventually rallied, went through the all-time highs and rallied to 66,000, then crashed down in the 40s, then rallied to the 66 again. And then this brutal crypto winter went from 66 all the way down to 16,000. Mm-hmm. Brutal. And then it rallied up. And so it is today where it is, and yeah, everybody's got their own Bitcoin journey, but MicroStrategy's Bitcoin journey is we started out of desperation. It was like, do this or maybe just shutter the company. We went from, desperate defensive to opportunistic. Hey, someone wants to give us $1.6 billion for nearly free for 6 years. If I offered you $1.6 billion for free for the next 6 years to invest in anything you wanted, would you take it?
Absolutely. We asked Dave Ramsey the exact same question. He said no, he wouldn't take it.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And you must not believe in anything, right? I mean, if you're in business and someone's offering you, in essence, free money to invest in your business for the next 6 years and you don't want it, well, what it really means is you've run out of ideas. You don't know what to do with the capital. But, we went from the first step to opportunistic, and then it became strategic. And we realized we are a Bitcoin development company. Our job is to issue securities and to engage in technology projects and advocacy and education in order to spread, the virtues of Bitcoin and the opportunities of Bitcoin to the world.
But you know what? While we're on the topic, you have to ask yourself, what's the future going to hold for businesses? Because if you ask 9 different experts, you're going to get 10 different answers. Bull market, bear market, rates will fall, rates are going to rise a little bit. It'll be really helpful to have a crystal ball.
But until that happens, over 40,000 businesses have already future-proofed their business with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud ERP bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR into one fluid platform. So basically, with just one unified business management suite, you have just one source of truth, giving you all of the visibility and control you need to make quick decisions. And with real-time insights and forecasting, you're peering into the future with actionable data.
When you're closing the books in days and not weeks, you're spending less time looking backwards and more time on what's next. So whether you're earning millions or hundreds of millions, NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and seize your biggest opportunities. And speaking of opportunity, right now you could download the CFO's Guide to Machine Learning and AI at netsuite.com/iced. Again, that's netsuite.com/iced with the link down below in the description. netsuite.com/iced. Thank you so much, NetSuite, for sponsoring this episode. And now let's get back to the podcast.